Okay, looking at question 6 now for this video. We've done a video for all of the questions in paper 2. So have a look in the playlist. This is the last question in the exam, and we're looking at the paper from Volcanoes, which is 2018. I'll leave a link in the information box for this video if you want to find it. So key info for question 6. You need to compare the text, or say the similarities and differences. This is the only question in the exam where you do have to compare. Question 5, although we're talking about both texts, you just got to really find the information. So this is the only one where we're talking about what is the similar and what are the differences. You're going to probably do PE sentences. You're going to use comparing words or adverbials like however, in contrast, likewise. 10 marks available, so we're looking at 13 to 15 minutes, like all the 10-mark questions. This is the question that people do the least good on in the exam, and it's not because it's particularly hard, it's because people do not get to it because they've run out of time. You've got to have 13 to 15 minutes to finish this question at the end of the exam. Time managing is the biggest problem why people don't do well. So it's 3 to 4 minutes for low mark questions, 13 to 15 minutes for 10 mark questions. So let's look at the question. Both of these texts are about volcanoes that have erupted, and then keyword compare. So what is the same, what is the difference, what the writers can see and hear, how they get their experiences across. So the information you've got to find is what the people hear, what people see, and what people hear. And then the second bullet point is basically saying what the examiner, what the writer's done and what techniques they've used. Okay, remember though, you've got to make it clear which one they're talking about. So don't just say extract 1 or extract 2. As an examiner myself, if you do not make it clear, you might get a big fat 0. If the examiner doesn't know which text you're talking about, you're not going to do very well. So my tip would just be to use their surnames that will be on the exam paper, and which you'll be find easy. So remember, you'll have already read both texts in the exam, so you'll be familiar with them. So it means you won't have to read both again. You can just skim. And don't worry if you feel we might be repeating points you've already written in past questions. So question 2 might be about the erupting volcanoes, and you might have done a PE on the erupting volcano. So you can use this in this question as well. So you literally can copy that PE that you've done earlier in the exam out, only if it fits the question though. So language comparison, so here's the ones for similarities, here are things are differences. So what I would do is I would decide now which one you're going to use in your PEs. So if it was me, for example, I would always say likewise if I'm talking about something similar, and however if I'm talking about differences. But it'd be up to you which one you want to pick, but likewise and however are the ones I'd probably use. So remember then the question is about what they can see in here. Just for this video, because I want to keep it down to a short period of time, we're just going to talk about what the writers could hear about the erupting volcanoes and how they got their experiences across. Okay, so this is just, so obviously when you do it in the exam, you'd get a highlighter and you'd highlight anything to do with sound. So Robbins, the only thing really he said that the volcanoes had a low boom, and Sandrick said they were very loud, panic-stricken and deafening. So the 21st century one just said the volcanoes had a big boom, and the other one said very loud, panic-stricken and deafening. So I would look at these quotes and I would say, what do the quotes have in common? And I would say the thing they have in common is they both talk about the loudness of how loud the sound was. So boom, for example, is like a low boom, like almost onomatopoeia, but a word boom basically means something you could hear from miles and miles away. While deafening, again, tells us something is very, very loud. So that's the thing they've got in common. So let's put that into a PE. So you start with, both writers suggest the sound of the volcano erupting was very loud. Remember, the question is about the volcanoes erupting. I'm not talking about any other sound. In one of the extracts, for example, it talks about the baby crying. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the volcanoes erupting. So my PE, both writers suggest the sound of the volcano erupting is very loud. Robbins described the sound as a boom, which suggests the sound is deep and can be heard from miles away. Likewise, I'm using my adverbial or my comparing word. Sandrick says eruption is very loud and people were panic-stricken. This suggests the sound was so bad that it scared people. So, as a little bit of a structure, in red we've got what I'm talking about, my point. Then in blue I've got my quote and my explanation. So I've said, why has the writer decided to use the word boom? What does boom suggest? Well, boom suggests it's a deep and loud sound we could hear a long way away. And then again, extract 2, quote and explanation. I put panic-stricken. I've basically said, why has that phrase been used? Well, panic suggests it was so bad it was scared. It was scared. It was making people anxious. And then I've got my likewise or however word to link it, and also tell the examiner if I think it's a similarity or a difference. The key info for question 6, you need to compare, say what's the same, what's the difference. PE sentences, use comparing words. 10 marks available, and it's 13 to 15 minutes. And then a little summary for all the reading exam. Time manage, so remember it's 13 to 15 minutes for a 10 mark, 3 or 4 minutes for a small question. Leave a one-line gap between all PEs so it's clear for the examiner, and only say if it's a verb, noun or whatever, only if you're really sure it's correct. If you're not sure, just say the word.